So I'm on. The first year I did it, it was just a couple week long thing during forward testing, something just to get those kids through that time. Last year is the first year we did it for the full year. And I have a student here who will share about her experience. She made an amazing project. So Genius Hour inspired by Google, 4 days of curriculum instruction, 1 day of Genius Hour in the classroom. Student-led, I designed it to be 24 weeks. And then we ended it with like a capstone gallery walk. We had a community night at our school and all the kids had their displays. So what does that look like in the classroom? Because it's kind of intimidating to just be like, okay, pick a topic and do some research. I have it all designed, so like we spend 4 weeks on the claim, a couple weeks in researching. But the beginning of class is just a mini lesson on one part of that process. And then the rest of the hour, I'm either conferencing with students. Conversational conferencing is kind of like speed dating your topic or whatever it was that week. And then students have a lot of work time. A big piece of this too is the self-evaluations and reflections, just having students self-monitoring their own learning, giving them ownership of this. Planning, keys to success. So classroom management, you really need to have like behavior expectations, things like that down, because giving students an entire class period of time for free work, you'll see is kind of a negative at times. Plan backwards. So if you know your date that you want to have it done, and going backwards is a lot easier than trying to plan forward for this one. Organizational system. You're going to have all your students, at 164 students last year, doing 164 different topics. So spreadsheet queen, and I just had my sheet and I'd write little notes on it. Like, that's what works for me. I like that we have those laptops at the touch screen, but it's too much to sit and type, and so I just use paper and pen. So positives and negatives, this is from last year. Intrinsic motivation. I found like students fell into two categories, either kids who really ran with us and made awesome stuff, or kids who totally played the system and did nothing for Genius Hour. Creativity, I think Kaya's is probably one of the most creative, and to be honest, her topic is paranormal, and I was a little bit sketch on that at first, like, oh, I don't know where we're going with this, but she really, you'll see her final presentation was amazing. Conversational conferencing, that was an awesome tool that we use. That's like speed dating the topics, so they sit across from each other. They practice note-taking with us. Giving constructive feedback is huge for students, I feel like. Not just like, this sucks, and move on. Relationship building, probably the best relationships I've had with students in 15 years of teaching. And I think a lot of it had to do with all the conferencing we did, and you really get to know students outside of just, I teach science, and it's not everybody's thing, so you get to know your students on a better level. I can't describe how cool it was on community night to see these 8th graders like take ownership. Like, they had their families and friends like, come see this, and their pride in their work was really awesome. We made a lot of good community connections. One student did a blood drive, so that was a cool connection, and we ended up having 29 blood donors. Negatives, too much time. So I allowed like just way too much time. When I look back, I'm going to adjust research time. I had like 2 months. So what I did was 1 day every week, and 8 class periods for research was way too much. So I sized that back to 3 weeks for this coming up year. Claim struggles, I needed to figure out something better to help kids who are really struggling with the claim. Procrastination. I think now that like 6th and 7th graders have seen this 8th grade project, they're going to be less likely to like wait till the last minute, because you can tell if they're like a student like Kaya who worked all year long, or you're the kid like, Sam, who waited till like the night before to throw his thing together. Like that. And then mom projects, that's the other thing that I really struggled with, how to fix that. Like a student who did nothing during class and then has this like amazing mom project. That's the class and homework thing, trying to make them more accountable. And gallery walk, the way I had it set up was just like crammed every single poster into my room. We had trifolds, and that did not work. So trying to find a better space to spread that out. And then, believe it or not, I had it scheduled for all the kids to do their presentations in class, but I just thought, let's skip it, because it was the first year. I actually had a lot of disappointing kids who really wanted to present their stuff. So I'll incorporate that back to next year. Here's the list of a bunch of the topics that kids had. Solar energy was a cool one. One girl made a a pet play store, so like a Petco but for birds. Non-organic versus organic. What else?
Fish gills.
What was that?
Fish gills.
Fish gills was actually interesting. So this kind of demonstrates like it was hard to get kids to think beyond just like an informational research project. Like my goal is for them to really plug into like a community. Like that would take it to the next level for me, but I'm noticing like that was on me because my expectations weren't super clear. Like once you do it you have to be okay to just jump in, you know, figure out what works, what doesn't work. Like I'm now requiring, we'll get to that in a minute, but conversational conferencing. So I set my room up so it's long tables and desks facing each other, and then they just sat down on either side. We had time in the beginning, they filled out information about their own, just so when they sat next to somebody, they weren't just gonna like spew everything they had about that topic. So we did this with claims. So when they got their claim they thought was a good claim, they sat down and talked it out with another person. We'd rotate. I think I gave them like 2 minutes to talk about their side. And the other person had to be quiet and listen, and then they had a spot where they could take notes, and then they flip in reverse. And we did that for a whole class period, and it was really cool because I'd been telling these kids like things about their claim, like, okay, we gotta change it here, or change, you know, and they'd look at me like, meh. But then they hear it from a peer, they're like, oh, Mrs. Graff, did you know? Like, yes, this is what I've been telling you. So I thought that was a really cool conferencing thing that I'll plan to use more. Relationship building, again, like it's just a good connection. I made a lot of friends with parents too, which I was not expecting. A lot of parents actually cared about this project and contacted me frequently. Not in a bad way, just like making sure their kids on track and things like that. So I tried to highlight a few of the final presentations from this year. So this one I was a little bit nervous about, minimalism with art. I was super impressed, and her project, it was up and down and all over the place, but it came out really cool. I don't know if you can really see it. So that middle art piece is literally just a blank white canvas, and it sold for like $16 million or some crazy amount. So she developed a survey. She wanted to figure out what influences, why would somebody pay that much, right? So she developed her own survey, gathered the data, and then she analyzed gender, age, income, and political affiliation with how it influences a person's taste in art. So that was a pretty unique presentation, and I thought she did a really nice job. So Erica did stem cell transplants, and she also organized the blood center drive, which she took it to the next level. She won the 8th grade Kiwanis Award, kind of based off of this. She did everything for it. I literally had to do nothing. I sat down. That's the cool thing. Like, you get kids who are really driven and can take it to the next level. This was my hope, kind of, for like a level 4 type of project. Hydroponics. So some kids did like a science fair kind of project, but encouraging them to take it to the next level. So he developed this whole system on his own, and he revised it after every production cycle. So this is his 3rd harvest that he had. It was kind of neat to see all the things he learned about. And you can see it's like 8th grade level presentation work. I think Kaya's will blow everybody out of the water, but this is like typical. Like, he didn't like it centered, which I think he was just lazy and said that. I don't know. But making my rubric a lot clearer and quantifying things, stuff like that, is going to be a big help going into the next year. This, I wish I had the picture beforehand. So this is the best edited project, I thought. Her trifold is just basic, like the one you saw before. She really jazzed this one up. So melted the crayons on the top, and then each of those boxes, like, they stick out a little bit. They're envelopes that make her topic interactive, like kind of almost like a self-diagnosis. Put yourself in the shoes of somebody who has this. That was pretty neat. And then we have Kaya. You want to talk about your paranormal presentation, and she's just here to either encourage you or hopefully encourage you to do this with your student.
Well, so when I first heard about this project, I was very excited about it, and I had a lot of ideas rushing through my head, and I even had some of my students, and I had Miss Graff kind of vote on a topic, which at first I actually was going to make an app about art and stuff, but it was like way too long of a process, and I knew nothing about coding, and it was way too much. So about like I was actually a quarter in when I like actually started like thinking about this project. Now I already had ideas of like how I was gonna write the project and how like the paper like how my paragraphs were gonna be laid out, and because originally I actually was working on for it was National History Day, and I made a trifold, and so that was probably my first trifold I've ever made. So I had a lot more ideas for this one, and I thought, why not go all out and have this whole display of basically almost everything that I talk about through my presentation, which like tarot cards and different types of like rocks, such as like healing rocks, and like they mean different things within a certain religion, in which believes in spiritual, like the spiritual realm, and like how there can be ghosts here with us. And so I also made little pamphlets where people could look through it about the rocks, and then so I had some of them out, and I was already like intrigued about this topic, but I didn't know much about it, in which when I like actually started researching, I learned a lot about it, and I never like actually realized how much there was to it, because like a lot of people say it's fake, and which I mean, I do believe that it is real, but I do understand how others may suspect that it's just something made up. But it took a lot of effort, and like I thought, well, there's so much like blank space, so I like decorated the back with just some art, because I'm very like artistic, I will say, and I just had to include that. So I know like other students, they like some of them may not be like fully into this one topic, so they'll switch it, which I mean it's a bit different when it's at the very end of the project, and it's like they're just putting everything together, and I'm like, I want to help them and I'm watching them, but it's kind of on them for doing that, because like they should have planned more ahead and stuff for, you know. So I would say like maybe encourage them to pick a topic that they're very interested in but may not know that much about.
That's probably the hardest part, because a lot of kids like pick random stuff and then they want to change. So that's not an option going into next year. I think I only had a couple students who actually did change their topic. Like coding, I didn't have access. Like Tim Cole's amazing, but his time limit, you know, like I didn't have anybody I could connect her with to help her with the coding. So that's another thing. Hopefully as I do this longer, like you'd have more community connections, or you could partner a student up with somebody to help them. But this is kind of, I love the modeling and the hands-on stuff, so I've incorporated that into next year's rubric, where everybody has to have some sort of hands-on. Not necessarily people have to touch. We have to have something other than just your trifold up. So she did an amazing job. Thank you. So focus goals, the changes, is trying to get consistent student engagement, higher accountability, align to the standards. That was a challenge that I tried to figure out, and then accurate display of learning. So as you can see, my room was just like crowded with these posters. It just wasn't the best. So consistent student engagement, how I'm going to fix that is every week they're going to actually have an assignment linked to this. So they'll have something to turn in, like concrete, that's with points. Higher accountability, that weekly assignment, hopefully is going to prevent the mom projects. And they're going to have to actually be working in class. I also have it so that amplifies the curriculum we use, and it's not super popular with students. But if they're not caught up with their Amplify, because it's an online curriculum, it's really easy for students just to blow off. If they're not caught up with that, then their Genius Hour day, work day is going to get taken away, and they're going to spend it catching up on the curriculum. Because everybody loves Genius Hour. Like, that's a given. That's like, you don't even have to sell this. Like, half of your job usually is trying to sell what you're teaching. Like, this is just really fun. So to align it to the standards, I listed out 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science standards, and the students have to pick a topic that aligns with one of those standards. So unfortunately, paranormal probably wouldn't make the cut, But I also had a lot of kids that picked like biographies of people. And my goal is that they show, like at the end, they learn something on their own and they can display that learning somehow. And I don't know, maybe you're a huge, like, what was it, XXX? I don't even know, some rapper. Like, maybe you're already a huge fan. So, like, the fact that you just made a poster about that doesn't really show what I'm hoping for. Later start, I started right away last year and it was just too much time. So I mapped out the calendar and we're starting in November. Students are also going to be responsible to have a binder where they keep everything. So it's really important that they look back on the self-reflections and the evaluations. I was awarded an Oshkosh Foundation grant for this next year, so I incorporated students having to write a grant request into this project so that, I mean, anybody who goes into science is probably going to have to write, I mean, almost any academic area, like a scholarship or something like that. So part of this will be learning how to write grants. The weekly assignments rubric is going to be taped in their notebook and they have to track themselves every week. Because, you know, some weeks I show up and I give like a 1 effort. Some weeks I show up at a 4. So I just want to look at the whole project overall, not just like the final outcome. And then again, keeping the self-evaluations and reflections in that binder is going to be hopefully helpful. Student changes, so no Chromebook presentations is probably the biggest change. So I was really nervous keeping like 40-ish Chromebooks in my classroom with all the public coming in and out. You don't know. And then they also go to sleep after a certain amount of time, so all those presentations didn't even get to be viewed. Model included in-class presentations, and then part of the rubric is going to be that they have some sort of community involvement. So whether that's interviewing a community person, organizing a blood drive, something like that. So that's going to be different for all the kids, and that's me. I've been teaching 15 years, and this is my 3rd year at Merrill. Any questions or anything? Try to open it up to...
What if you have kids that are terrible researchers?
Yeah, researching is just such a small part of it.
Okay.
Let me show you.
I just know that I've talked like the 6th grade crew, that's not like a solid skill they've developed. And
Sure.
that's something that he's like struggled with too, is like how do you teach them to research well or like at least effectively?
Yeah,
This should trick them into it though.
it does.
If they pick the topic that they actually do it.
It really does, and I haven't really...
If they put fish gills down just to be funny, and now they're stuck with that.
Yeah. So this is kind of like what my timeline looks like. The research part is kind of fun, I thought. Like, we did this crap test. And, you know, middle schoolers are going to go nuts and use the word crap. I'm sure high schoolers are probably over it. But current, relevant, accurate. P is something. Dang it. I teach this. It's summer, though. Let's see. I'm happy to share any of this stuff with you. Current, relevant, authority, accuracy, purpose. So the one I used the year before was just a massive mess, and I was like scoring all these things. And our Amanda Zenker, the library person, helped me come up with this, which is a much easier form for kids to use. So they have to use this on whatever sources they're doing. I'm trying to think. I don't know if you want to see the piecing, that's kind of helpful. I'm trying to make this into my own website and kind of like market it a little bit. I don't like teachers pay teachers. I just feel like, ugh. Yes, I hate that. You buy one thing and they're like all over you. Yeah. Trying to think. Something, oh, the research is what you were. So all the evaluations and reflections kind of look the same. I want them to identify what they're proud about, what they struggled or are still struggling with, their plan to address that. And even if that's just talking to me about it, or I'm fine. Like, I just need them to identify that stuff. Spending their last week, like, what are they really going to focus on? And then I try to, like, step them in the next direction, like, looking forward, like, what are you going to do to do the next step? And then I always have a section about what do you need help from me. So I try to highlight those kids right away if they actually fill that out, that part, and they need something specific. I try to meet with them immediately. And then this is just a way for them to track if they're actually doing what they need to do. So every single step of the process has, and I just print it back to back. It has the same thing. Let's see. Data collection. And the mini lesson is just super short. The thing I spend most time on is going to be the claim. So this year is new. I'm giving them a possible list of projects. I didn't really get like any pushback from the district or admins in my building, but a lot of students did not have a science topic. I did get through all the curriculum, so I wasn't too worried about that. But I do want to make it like more NGSS aligned and something I can fall back on, because our curriculum actually doesn't cover all the standards that I'm supposed to teach in 8th grade science, which is a whole nother issue. So this is a way that I can fit in all those, like the writing, the research, engineering kind of aspects too. So, and I didn't really want to give the kids a claim. I just want to give them a topic, because a big part of their work is to develop their own claim. Which is, it's kind of fluid, but not to the point of like changing a whole different topic. And I hope this prevents like the biography, informational, that sort of thing. Trying to think if there's anything from here before. That my first year doing it was kind of just a massive cluster. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was just, I thought I had in mind what was gonna work, and it just, here's the original crap worksheet that I used, and as you can see, that's a lot more work than just those 2 columns and click. Let's see.
We tried something like this in our AdRes program 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and it was great for a handful of students.
Uh-huh.
Teachers loved it, because I mean, we did it too.
Yeah.
We created our own, and we did it right along with the
Sure.
students. And our one big thing that we would change, or because I came to this because we want to implement it again this year,
Yeah.
is having multiple gallery walks.
Yeah.
To do one like at the end of each quarter or at the end
Sure.
of each semester, so then that would give a student, like, they can either change their topic after they do
Okay.
the gallery walk, or they can
I see.
continue attacking that one. But
Yeah.
they want to get deeper and deeper into
That's
it, so-
really, yeah.
so
We did a rough draft, so at the end, that was important because I didn't want the first gallery walk to be like the community night. So we did a rough draft where kids had to have, and I'd be a lot more firm because that day of the rough draft, I probably put on 20,000 steps to and from the printer, and like, too many kids. I'm hoping the like tighter rubric and every week having something is going to prevent like the scramble at the end. But the rough draft, I invited other teachers to bring their students, and then I had a form, just a really quick form that, and then I spent like 3 days in my spring break. Why is this not?
it's actually sad to see some, like your mom projects you're talking about.
I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus because you'll know who it is, but literally did nothing the whole thing and had this amazing project with like a laminated book. I mean, it was not.
A number of like demonstration speeches that people did like the night before rather than doing it for an entire semester. It was kind of sad to see people.
Sure. I'd like to find a better way to organize this because essentially, so this is an adult feedback form. I had students' names on it, and then I just wanted them to look for unique presentation, clearly stated claim, organized logically, and was it engaging? So the teachers that would walk through did this for me. Some did an amazing job and wrote tons of comments, which is super appreciative. I spent like 3 days of my spring break going through all the forms and then compiling, like, Kaya got all the ones that teachers filled out for her. And I had 164 students, so there has to be some better way to do that, whether it's cutting the slips and leaving them like right next to the presentation for somebody to fill out. I'm not really sure, but that needs, because it was just too much. And then I had students do this, which, like that minimalism project that was just all black. So many of those 6th graders were like really boring. I mean, yes, it's really boring, but for me to put that on her feedback form, I felt bad. So like I said, yeah, it's minimalism. That's the point, is that it's minimal. So we did this, and then we had edits, which is really tough to get kids to edit what they think is their final presentation. I was not expecting the pushback on that I got. Like, this is not okay. Like, you have spelling errors, you have all this stuff. Like, we need to fix it. Some of the, I think I did actually take pictures of a lot of them. I'd feel bad. Communication's huge. A friend showed me how to use IC to like blast your class list, which I didn't like doing. I never did that because I thought, man, parents probably get a lot of stuff, but towards the end that seemed more effective than just emailing the emails I had. And then kids started doing work. It was crazy. Once like I started, hey, you're a kid. I mean, it was a 500-point project. So, and then I did this exit survey, which I loved these results. I don't know if I can pull up where's the results? Where do I find that? Oh, right here. Duh. 0? Oh, because I pulled it over from last year. Let's see. So a lot of them were do not procrastinate. Shocker. And I feel like I had been telling kids this from the get-go, but they really didn't get it. But now, so students liked everything. Freedom, it was fun. Yeah, classic.
To choose their own topic seems to be like.
That's a big driving force, but yeah, I mean, one kid I paid in Takis to do work every class period because, okay, so I gave him a bag of Takis for every week that he actually turned in all his work. Guess how many bags of Takis I gave out?
2?
6.
Okay.
For the whole school year. And I had bought like a big box because
Yeah.
6. But he actually did a project, so that was like, I tied this to my SLO PPG too, that I only wanted 80% of students to be at proficiency level for this, and I ended up with 96% of students actually finishing this, which, so if they're doing a biography on some famous rapper, they're at least like doing something. I feel like the more I do this, the better it'll be to gear them somewhere else. I didn't like this, so no partners. That was a huge thing. Like Mr. Garten for history, I think it allows partner work. And I just didn't want to tackle that. Like this was my first time doing it year long, and you know, kids. I didn't really hate it. I didn't like that you can get it done in the first month. So kids who really worked at this, like that's my other thing, is trying to get them to stay on a timeline. Like being okay, the really higher level functioning kids actually struggled with this more than the lower level IEP kids. I feel like the lower level kids are always having to like figure out new ways to do stuff, where the higher level kids, like they just are regurgitating what you're telling them kind of. So for them to take independence, and it was tough for a lot of them. What else? We were limited on space. I'm sorry, I can't make my room bigger. Set requirements. So I had a rubric, but we didn't follow it very strictly. So I need to just be better about doing that. It was just too much time. That's definitely. They should have picked more science-based topics.
Can you go back up?
Sure. Yep, sorry.
I also wish we had less time to perfect our projects so people would not wait so last minute to finish the project.
Yeah.
Or they do like a month before. And
So rough draft, I was pushing that. They had like a week, 2 weeks to prep on that. I also used it like if we had forward testing or something like that going on, or if we had a half day, I made that like a genius hour day because it wasn't enough time to actually teach a lesson. So and Amplify, I don't know how much, you probably haven't heard much, but my lessons take me 20, 25 minutes to get through. And I'm like doing everything that they're telling me. So to have another half a class with nothing to fill, I wasn't anticipating that. So I often plugged in, okay, it's Genius Hour work time now. So kids who actually did that and took advantage of that got done with it way quicker. Let's see, 5 being, this is what I found was interesting. So only 10% of kids kept on track with me. A lot of them moved a little quicker than I was hoping, which that's the cool thing about when you do the conferencing with each student, like you can kind of gear them towards the next step, but I just need to probably scale that back a bit so I don't have kids that are done and kids that are way behind. Let's see, their amount of effort, I think it might be tipped a little bit high to the 5 side, but that's pretty accurate. So this is kind of cool. Pick a good topic, don't procrastinate. And a lot of students have already seen this, and then my 6th and 7th grade science teacher team really love this as like a capstone project. So they're going to do like little small bits like citizen scientist and things like that like pick the topic for them, because these kids have had no long-term research skills at all. So to kind of build that up, 6th, 7th grade will make 8th grade a little bit better, I'm hoping. Don't slack off, don't play games. Even with that Go Guardian, I don't know how kids get through. It drives me nuts. Try your best.
I just locked the computer in there.
You just lock it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been trying to just-
I got a Chromebook tossed at me because I locked it.
Awesome, you catch it.
No, I just let it fall and hit the wall. Same kid who slept for 3 hours in my class, or 3 consecutive hours, and told me to F off when I tried waking him up. It was not sad to see him head to, oh, you're at West? He's at North, yeah. You're lucky. Were you proud? So this is something I was hoping students would take pride in their work, take a little bit more ownership. I didn't have anything. I'm upset with myself for not putting as much effort into this project as I should have. Yeah, this is where you hear, I didn't have enough time or something like that, but then you have all the kids telling you had too much time, so. Let's see, I could have given more effort. Fancy it up. Not wait until the last minute is kind of probably the overall. So I quantified the requirements for the actual end of it. I'm going to have them all do trifolds. Next year's will be mandatory, but then they have to have so many facts, so many visuals, like an interactive piece. So hopefully that'll help. What else? I could do this different. IDK. She did her job. Let's see. Try to organize community night better. That's the first time Merrill did a community night, and because I had all the 8th graders presenting, it kind of fell back on me. Like, I wasn't anticipating that at all. Have strict due dates. That's definitely something that we're going to do better on than the week before. So here's something I struggled with too, is trying to tell kids like what to fix. And they don't really take that to heart until it's like time to do the presentation. So trying to get them to realize like the edits and adjustments we're making along the way are gonna pay off in the end. Turn off Go Guardian, did I see?
There was more Go Guardian.
More, yeah. That's probably a good kid. Less time, so it gets pushed back. Promote it during the year, and then when the time comes, kids will be more excited. That's kind of my goal for next year. And we're implementing a new like me time, like a flex hour. So like the first 2 months of school are going to be kind of getting the kids in that pattern and using the program and stuff like that. So it kind of just works, hopefully, to start later this year. I think, what else? What would you do differently? Work harder. Have a whole different topic. No Chromebooks? I don't know how that would help though, but I don't know. Any other thoughts or anything like that? I'll keep this up for next one. So I have students picking the standard, and then I'll have like parents will sign off along the way, things like that. So I'm happy to share any of the resources too if you want any of that curriculum stuff that I put together. I know North Communities tried it too, but they didn't have like a specific curriculum or anything like that. So it's kind of hard just to tell students like, here, research a project of whatever you want. Good?
Yeah, no, this is awesome.
So are you thinking about doing it, or are you just
It kind of
interested?
Like